Hey everybody, John Huber here, Maryland K-12. This week I'm taking a look at residency in the state as it applies to K-12 schools, public schools in the state of Maryland. There are certain documents that people need in order to enroll a child in school. And we'll get to that in a second. But if you think back to when you went to school, it used to be you went to school based on where you lived. It was that simple. You lived in Orchard Beach, you went to Sunset Elementary, you went to George Fox Middle, you went to Northeast High. No questions asked. If you didn't like Sunset Elementary, you want to go to Rivera Beach Elementary, well, you need to move to Rivera Beach. Or if you want to go to High Point, you need to move to, Pine Haven or Queens Park or something like that, or High Point. It's not quite like that anymore. What it is now is for the, that's kind of the base of it. Yes, you go where you are supposed to go, but now you have magnet schools where kids will apply to go to these schools in other areas of the county. And there's also the whole homeless situation, or you may have heard the term McKinney-Vento, which is the original legislation that created this. And let's, I'm going to talk mainly about McKinney-Vento right now, because what it basically means is that a student who is considered a homeless student, which all that really means is that they are without permanent residence, that they don't have, they've been displaced. They'll hear that term before. So homeless doesn't necessarily mean they're out in a shelter, or they're living on the street or whatever. What it means is they are without permanent residence. So that's one situation. So what happens is schools are required to make people prove residency. So whether you're homeless or not, the theory is this. When you go to a school and you say, I want to enroll my child, you have to bring a couple of pieces of documentation. You need a picture ID with your address on it. You need 3 pieces of mail within the past 60 days. BGE bill, cable bill, whatever, something that the post office has delivered to that house. It's like the old Miracle on 34th Street. The United States Post Office recognizes this person is living there. The other thing you need is you need a lease or a deed. You need a picture ID, and you need some type of 3 pieces of mail within the past 60 days, and you also need some type of documentation that this is your child. It could be birth certificate, something of that nature, to say, yes, this is my child, so that you can't just take the neighbor's kid and walk in there. And that creates a lot of problems too, because sometimes grandparents, uncles and aunts will bring kids in and say, well, they're living with me, I want to enroll them here. That doesn't work either. But the problem is, not necessarily the problem, but the situation that occurs most often is when a student says he or she, or when a parent or someone says that they are homeless and they're under McKinney-Vento, all those rules go out the window, because it is very clear that you have to enroll that kid right away if they are. So the pupil personnel worker, or the PPW, has to get out there and start investigating and see what's going on. And it causes a lot of conflict, because people are trying to take advantage of the system to go from school A to school B, because I don't like this school because it's a bad school and they're out of control over there, and I want them to go over there. It's the grass is always greener, kind of thing. I want them to go to that school because this school over here is a terrible school and I hate that school, and I want them to go over there. So there's a lot of that. So I've dealt with that very, very many, many times in my career. And it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. And the person who usually deals with this is usually, in the secondary school anyway, it's the guidance secretary. That guidance secretary is like the gatekeeper of the school. And sometimes they put the most vicious, hard-headed secretaries that they could find in those positions, because that's what is needed. It is a thankless job, and people come in and say, I want to enroll my kid. And you say, well, I'm sorry, you can't do it because you don't have this, or this. What do you mean I can't do this, that? And then it starts, and then it's like, and it's not always consistent. One school might let a little something slide. Another school might let a little something slide. And then that inconsistency, then they start playing one school off another, and it's a mess. So anyway, I just want to give you this little something about what is required to enroll people in the students in Maryland public schools. and that it's not like it used to be. And the reason I brought this up, and the reason I did a little thing on it, is because I was approached not too long ago by somebody who was just reaching out saying, "Hey, man, I just in the school they won't let me enroll in it, and I'm like, I'm homeless, et cetera, et cetera." Well, I helped the guy out a little bit and looked into it, realized that, according to the PPW, this kid was living in another state, and he was living, in a perfectly fine place in another state, and that he was not, this child was not entitled to enroll in these schools, and he didn't want to hear it. So now it's a real problem for that fella, and I hope that things have worked out for him, because he seemed like a really nice man. But anyway, residency regarding schools in the state of Maryland. It is a tough situation in many cases. Not to mention magnet schools. That's a whole nother world, which is a little easier to deal with. But what happens is all this together, it puts a big strain on transportation. So transportation are driving kids from one end of the county to the other, and it causes a lot of problems. Anyway, that's my little shtick for this week. Residency in the state of Maryland, as far as the public schools go. It's a little more complicated than it once used to be. I hope this helps. Thanks. Have a great day.